Hello, crew. You have used your camera. You've done a beautiful job being careful to get everything nice and square. The picture doesn't look keystoned or too warpy, and you paid attention to color balance and all these things. But you want to present this image in a way that looks beautiful for your proposal. You also want to resize it and save it in a way that might be useful for you in the future. So that's one thing to save. But then also saving it in the format that your um, the people you're sending it to, what do they want it as, which might be smaller. So you want to save it a couple ways. So yeah, there are a number of ways you can correct things that look false and misleading in your picture. So what I have here on the screen, so I just go, you know, uh, open a new file. So I just opened up a JPEG photo from my camera, and it's a terrible shot. I tried to do a lot of things wrong, so I'm sure yours is better, but this will make for a good tutorial on how to solve some of these problems. So looking at this picture, what do we see? We see that the picture is not square. It's quite keystoned in a couple directions, awkwardly. Also, we notice that it's very yellow. So that is not the tonality of this painting because this wall is actually white. So we're going to do some corrections. So the first thing we want to do, I think, is to fix the color. I like to be able to see my layers, so I have layers here, and to not change the original right off the bat is sometimes a good idea. So if you mess something up, you don't have to re-import your original. So I'm going to go Command A, so you can see the marching ants going around the whole outside, which means I've selected that. I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to go paste. So that's Command C for copy, Command V for paste. So now I have a new layer that I can alter and still keep the background layer as the original. So let's try a couple ways to correct this. One way to correct your color is to go Image, Adjustments, Color Balance. And this is basically doing it by eye. And so I see that it's too yellow, so I'm going to dial out some yellow. And I see that it's too red, so maybe I'll cool it down some more. Maybe I'll add some green. Take out some green. Yeah, because there are lots of purples in that painting, so maybe we don't want to go too green. So we're just doing this and this, cooling that thing down, getting rid of the yellow. And actually that wall is starting to look white in the background, and that painting is looking pretty good. So I might save that. We'll say OK with the OK button here. And that is a much cleaner version. So that is what we had. And that is where we landed by messing around with sliders. So there's another way you can get at this too. So I'm going to go Command All, Command C, Command V. So now we have a new layer that's ugly. Here's another trick. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Image, Adjustments, Curves. Now this shows a kind of chart of all the different, darks, the amount of darks in your picture, the amount of lights, the amount of almost white in your picture. So this kind of graphs out all those things. And you can tweak your value scale and all kinds of things with this. But what I want to do right now is not that. I'm going to grab this eyedropper. The one on the right is for whites. And I'm just going to sample this white here. And I'm telling the computer that that white is neutral. So now it has shifted my whole painting to assume that that is neutral. We could try it another way. This one's for midtones. So this isn't exactly midtone, but I could say, hey, that shadow there is supposed to be neutral. Or maybe this shadow is supposed to be neutral. Ew, it's really not working. So I do not like that. So as I say, this can go sideways. But that, I think, is where we were. And I'm going to grab the white one. This wall is white, so it's not pure white, but it's kind of white. I tell it that that is white. So that actually looks quite good, but overexposed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go Edit. I'm going to say OK to that one. And I'm going to go to Edit to Fade. So if that was something I like, where it's taken that yellow out and it looks crisp and they've got the silvery grays in here, but maybe it's too extreme, I can dial back the percentage that the fade was, or that the eyedropper was. So if I dial that back around 50%, that actually looks pretty great. So I'm going to say, okay. So what I did is the eyedropper was too extreme because this isn't actually white, so it really heightened it too much. But then I used fade to bring it back to the amount that looks right. So now I've got 3 options to check. So layer 2 is with the eyedropper and the fade. If I take that off, there's the one I did by eye. And if I take that off, that's the original. So from the original to that. Which do you like better? The original? I mean, not the original. That's the original. Yuck. So this is the one I did by eye. First crack at it. And this is the one I did with the eyedropper. Honestly, I think the brighter one is probably better. We could maybe come back to this and tweak it again. We could go back to curves. Another thing you can do with curves is tweak that line. So if I bring this in, it's going to get brighter. And I can also play with this curve to increase lights and darks. Sometimes you make a little S like this. If you do too much, it gets way too contrasty, right? It's really fake and gross. So you don't want to be doing much in this post-production moment. You want to keep it pretty straight. But you can tweak it a little bit. So there we go. Let's say OK. So that is now the one done by eye. And that is the one done with the eyedropper. I actually think these cools in here are more accurate. So we'll go with that. Okay. So we have decided that we're color corrected and our values are slightly tweaked in a way that I think looks good. Next step, okay? Color correction was one. Next step is to fix this keystoning disaster where it's so crooked. So I can grab, if I go up to the ruler here, I can grab the ruler and bring it down and line it up with the painting. Now I'm going to bring one in from the left. Now this lines up with the top corner. It's too far left. There's the bottom corner. It's too far right. So I'm trying to average that out to there. So again, the not too far right, not too far left, but average in the middle of where that thing is. Okay, so now here's the bottom one, and find that average. So there we go. I have guides for what shape this painting should be, and now I'm going to stretch the photograph to match. Now if you have some sculptural thing, this ends up looking awful, of course, but because the painting is flat, it can actually handle this kind of correction very well. So I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, Distort. So I get these handles that I can then manipulate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this handle a little to the right until this corner lines up with those guidelines. I'm going to go left and down slightly until that lines up. Beautiful. And bottom left corner, I'm stretching it out and down. And the bottom right corner, I'm stretching it out. So you can see that as I've done that, other things have changed as well. So I do this a couple times. Now I might want to zoom in, so I'm going to go Command plus, which allows me to zoom in here. I'm going to grab this hand just so I can drag the whole image up. Okay, there we are. So File, Transform, Distort, gives me the handle out here. And I can just really fine tune that because I'm zoomed in here. I can just kind of double check that it's right. And I'm just going to slide across here. Now you'll notice it's not quite on. So I can fine tune this when I'm zoomed in. I want to do all four corners a couple times first, zoomed out, so it's close, because they all affect each other, so you have to do it a bit iteratively. But there, now this should all work perfectly. So I'm going to hit the return key or the check mark at the top. I'm going to zoom out. Command 0 should make it all fit. And there we have it. So to remind you, we started with that, which was crooked and yellow. And now we have that, which is square and cool. So now I'm going to crop tool. So this is the crop tool here. And I'm going to shrink this thing in right to the margin. So you don't need generally any background around most images, unless it's a shaped piece or installation art or sculpture or something like that. But typically, it is sometimes nice if you have a really clean wall and the wall looks beautiful and the work casts a shadow to include some wall. But generally what people are looking for is that. Looks fabulous. Great. So now I'm going to save it a few times. You know, I might just save it as a Photoshop file because maybe I want to change something later, and then I have it. So phototest.photoshop document. Save. Guess we already had that. Okay. Something I should do before I do that is merge down, flatten image. Flatten image. Get rid of the layers I don't like. File. Save as. I'm going to pick TIFF. And because this is one of the first ones I've done, and I want to be able to keep this file in this format for later, I'm putting original test underscore original. Just so I'm saving something in a file format that I can use again and again. TIFF does not keep compressing and corrupting over time. It's very, it keeps its clarity even if you use it again and again. So phototest underscore original dot TIFF, and I'm just going to throw that into the folder with my other stuff. Save. Okay. So I might want to save it another way. I might want to go export, export as JPEG, and it gives me the size of the different dimensions of pixels, and I can just say, yes, I want to export that. Phototest original .jpeg. That sounds good. So we'll go save. Great. And now I'm going to do it again. Export. Export as. This will be the one to hand in for my assignment. So JPEG. These numbers are too big because who needs such big files just to look at someone's work? So I'm going to take the larger number and change it to 2000 because the request was 2000 pixels. So if I go 2000, so now it's a little smaller, it meets the criteria, I've scaled it down, it's actually 61% of what it was, and great. I'm going to go export, and I'm going to change the name so it does not say original anymore. It is going to say, well, I can just put the word number 2000 in there, and then I know the scale of the pixels is 2000 for the longest side. And I'm going to say save. Beautiful. So that is some good tricks on cleaning up the color and cleaning up the keystoning to get more accurate pictures.